What's up, dudes? In today's episode, we got a lot of cool stuff. We got some welding, we got some fabrication, we've got an install of the pretty version of the Subaru EZ30R engine going in this 69 911. Stay tuned for all the stuff. So I'd made myself a deadline to get to Subie Fest with the 911, and I needed all the stuff to come in on Wednesday, and it unfortunately came in on Friday. So Subie Fest was the next day. I needed 3 humans to try to get it all done in one day. Wasn't going to happen, but I did go to Subie Fest and check it out. I would have been the only Porsche swap there, which would have been pretty interesting. But a couple things. Got my stuff from Send Cut Send. I blew it and didn't bend one of the files, meaning I didn't tell them I wanted them to bend it. Send Cut Send was nice enough to rush the shipping for me, but there was just too much stuff to do. There was bending and powder coating and things like that. But here's the bracket you guys saw me make the other day. Unfortunately, I blew it and didn't tell them to bend the passenger side brackets. Wah, wah, wah. Thankfully, I met a dude literally right around the corner with this really cool restoration shop. Shout out to Cliff, who was nice enough to manually bend the other side for me so we could do this video and install all the pretty stuff in the car. Unfortunately, and of course, it scratched the hell out of the powder coating. So Send Cut Send is being nice and sending me 2 more nicely bent powder coated versions of this file. That being said, we're going to uninstall the pretty version of this engine and install all my parts on there. And then I've got a bunch of fabrication to do. I've actually got to get all the files that you saw me make in the last video, and I've got to weld them all together, clean everything up so it looks amazing as it gets installed. Really quick, somebody asked in the comments, and I can't expect you guys to have watched all the videos for the last 3 years to understand what this project is. The Twitter version is, I was building a car to grow my YouTube channel. It was the Blasphemy build. It's the olive green SEMA car, twin turbo, active aero, cameras all over the place, the techno mod. Oh my God. Holy mother of God. However, as I swapped in this Subaru Flat 6, there was a reason behind it. If you guys don't know the Porsche world, again, here's the Twitter version. If you were to buy a 3.0 Porsche engine, let's say 1978, I think, until, 82 or 85 or something like that, it'll cost you like, I don't know, let's say 10 to 15 grand on eBay to buy a working motor. But that motor is 40 plus years old, so you're gonna wanna rebuild it. If you try to rebuild it here in Southern California, it's going to cost you $30,000 because they're essentially Rolexes, and it's gonna take 2 years to get that engine back to you because there's 7 guys. There was 8. Shout out to Ed Pink. Rest in peace for Ed Pink, who built all the Singer engines. Those guys have such a massive backlog that when you bring them your engine, they're gonna tell you it's gonna be Q4 2026 or 2027 in the summertime before you get your engine back. So there's an opportunity there for this Subaru Flat 6, which on paper has a lot of the same exact specs, except it's a way more modern engine with quad cams and variable timing and all kinds of modern accoutrements that we can power with a Haltech ECU and get 300 horsepower instead of 180 horsepower, and it's 65 pounds lighter than the Porsche engine. So many people said, can you make me a swap for my 911 or 912? So over the last 3 years, I've been engineering that exact kit so that when you, at your house, get my big crate that has my big Rennch logo on the side, you pull the crate open, you've got your car ready to go, and my vision is you could be driving with that engine in your car within, let's say, 2 to 5 hours. depending on your level of mechanical expertise. But that's how complete and well packaged the kit is, and that's what I'm shooting for. So what you're seeing right now is me in the very final stages of engineering and prototyping that kit, because I have a number of people that have already purchased it and they're waiting for their engines. So if you would like to be one of those people, I do have a waiting list, and you can get on that waiting list. You can DM me and I'll tell you how to make that happen. But quick groundwork for this video. I'm gonna show you kind of some of the stuff that came in from Send Cut Send, and then I've got to pull this engine out so that I can bolt all the pretty stuff on. Then I've got to do all the engineering of where I'm going to put the flex fuel sensor, the wideband, the fuel regulator, etc., and make it all look really pretty and connected. Get it back into the car, then we can actually think about starting this thing up once again. So pretty cool. You guys saw this in CAD in the last video, and here it is in real life, made out of metal. So this is pretty cool. I've got this little crossover plate, and this is where I'm going to be mounting all of the accessories on the back of the engine here, so it won't clutter up the entire engine compartment. I also made these spacers. I 3D printed these, and it basically raises the entire unit by about 1 inch. I have a ducktail on this car, so this sits a little bit higher than the factory, like regular flat tail. I've designed this whole system to fit beneath a stock deck lid. So this has so much more room in it that I wanted to increase and push the radiator a little bit higher. So if you guys have a ducktail and you're gonna order this, I can include these 3D spacers. I can also make this bracket any color you want, because they get all individually made for me for the kits. This is basically where we are. What I'm going to do here is pull this motor. We've got a little bracket to weld here. I kind of made a little bracket for my intake, and I've got to weld that up in this video, but I want to get the engine exactly where it's going to be first. So I've got to get this thing out. That is going to be one of my first priorities. And since I'm by myself, I'm going to probably have to like pull it out on my little cart. That's not a cart, that's a dog, but I got a cart down there. And then pull it up with an engine hoist, kind of do a big swap between this one and that one. It's gonna be a whole thing by myself. That'll be really fun. Let's all tune in for that. Motor is out and on the cart. I'm gonna get it on that stand. And then I also clamped together one of my little engine holder honors here, these little brackets that I made. So I think I'm gonna throw a couple of MIG tack welds in this just to hold it together, and then I'm gonna bring it over to the welding table and weld it up. But let's get this thing up on the engine stand. I've just modified the fuel covers. I guess they're kind of like the fuel rail covers that are OEM. I need to do a little bit of trimming to make them work with the Porsche application, no big. And I also forgot to show you guys, this is the other part of the sandwich plate I made for the air intake. You can see I put my logo on that, and then some captive nuts on this side. So this goes on the inside of the wheel well. This one goes here on the outside, and it sandwiches together with a little bit of sticky rubber weather stripping that will go in between. And a number of you guys have commented, well, what about the water? And what about all the debris? Well, this isn't for mass production. This air intake style is just for me. This is something I'm doing for my own custom engine. And in terms of rain, it's 75 and sunny. We're in Southern California. Rains once every 19 years, and whenever it rains, people call the FBI and they're like, there's something happening and I don't know what it is. So there's that. And the other part is the debris, not super worried about it. You know, I drive this car maybe a couple times a month, and the filter costs $16. So if it gets trashed and I have to rotate it because it gets dented or something, that's okay. I'm not super worried about. I'm not driving in a lot of gravel. Barring all that, I probably still will create some kind of block for it. I mean, it is tucked under the wheel well, so I'm not worried about direct rain getting on top of it, and this thing won't be driven much in the rain, so not worried about it in the slightest. Very happy with how this thing turned out though. So now we're at a point where I get to do something that is super satisfying, kind of before I move on to other things, which is I still haven't seen this thing like with the powder coated intake on and the chrome radiator all in one piece on this lovely, nice painted engine. So we're gonna satisfy that urge right now before we get into anything else kind of productive and important on this thing, because I just gotta see what it looks like. Look at that, from 3D to this. How cool. If I have one gripe about this particular radiator, it's that they did a really nice job polishing and chroming this aluminum, but not this one. This has kind of got a bit of a dull finish. It's not exactly a mirror, but still pretty rad. Looks really good. And of course, my favorite part is this whole thing. So what we're gonna do now is I've got to tape this thing up and start orienting where I'm going to put all of this stuff here on the back, and then really I got to just start, you know, making it happen. Get everything oriented the way it's supposed to go, and you know, start plumbing all the different lines to it so it's all one unit instead of someone having to connect a bunch of tubing and stuff once they get the kit. They literally should have a fuel return line and a regular fuel line to connect. That's it from here. Everything else will already be connected and ready to go by the time you've got to install this thing in your car. Get so excited about how this thing turned out. So now I'm going to tape this thing up and start working on the location of all of these different parts that need to be plumbed in, and we should be good to go. Here's some of the stuff clamped in place right now, and you can see how much chaos all of these hoses and lines and stuff can cause, but looking at it from this direction, it's super clean. So my goal here is to make the visual install as clean as humanly possible, and then be able to recreate all of these hoses really easily. In fact, I'll probably end up, you know, getting a company just to make me the right size hoses so they are completely duplicatable every single kit. So I've got my fuel regulator, I've got my flex fuel sensor, which won't go on every single car, but this does enable me to run E85, and this whole engine, this whole configuration really helps if you're going to run a turbo. So you can opt for that. It'll be an addition if you want to do this. This piece here, my goal is once I manually drill all this stuff out, I will scan it and then add those holes to the laser cut version. So this stuff will just mount exactly where it is every single time, and I can just assemble it when the time comes. I've got to design in CAD a couple of pieces. One, I need a holder for these two relays. So somewhere on here, I'm gonna have to create some holder, and that's for both of the fans. They get triggered obviously by the hull tech at a certain temperature. And then I have this coolant overflow bottle, and my coolant's here, and I think I want to attach the bottle somewhere like right here. And that'll just attach with a little hose. And I think that'll be really clean. Once you guys see it from this side, you realize it's all completely invisible. It's pretty awesome. All right, that's gonna do it for the day. I'm gonna go have a life, go take the dog to the park and relax. I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, dudes, I think mission accomplished here. So what you're seeing here is a bit of organized chaos. So I've got fuel coming in from the fuel filter, you know, from the fuel pump. It's gonna come into my distribution block here, distribute to each one of the fuel rails. And then it's coming out into the fuel regulator, which will go from here to here. From the fuel regulator to the flex fuel sensor. Not everybody will have a flex fuel sensor. Otherwise, this will go all the way back to the return line. And then I've got air, goes to the throttle body. I cut this one a little bit too short, so I'll cut a longer one. Then I've got the wideband distribution block here, and this connects to each wideband sensor on each header. Then I actually 3D printed two somewhat important pieces. Number one is this thing mounts the relays for each fan, and that way I can just wire them into one spot. Each relay plugs into this. It's kind of an OEM plug on the bottom, and they feed right up into this thing. Then you literally just press the relays down, and then this feeds all of the important stuff you need. And then this bottle is the coolant overflow bottle. I literally just snagged it from Amazon. I think it's Evil Energy or something, but I ended up 3D printing this holder, which is kind of at an angle, but then holds the bottle straight up and down. Not sure if you can see that. It'll be a little easier when it's not all taped up. Then you just throw a strap around it right there, and that mounts the coolant overflow. Tube goes to the overflow on the radiator, so that is a nice sealed environment. So yeah, all of this stuff in concert makes for a very nice look that way, but maybe not this way, but who sees it? It's right there. It's facing that. I'll try to plumb the rest of the hoses and then move on to the scary part, which is drilling a brand new piece of powder coated steel without messing it up. So I totally blew it. I made a mistake, guys. For whatever reason, I decided to lift this flex fuel sensor up here and kind of align it with the top edge, completely forgetting the whole point of having it A, on this thing, and B, a little bit lower, is so you can't see it from here. It's all hidden. So I moved it up so high that you could see it. So now I have a random hole here. And I also kind of blew this one a little bit. So what I'm going to do is re-drill these two holes while it's lower. And then I can sort of retighten this. There's something here that I'm going to have to mess with that as well, but let's get these holes drills first. I did blow it considerably. That was a bad move on yours truly's part here. Let's go. That is so good. Okay, on approach, check it out. Super clean. Not a lot of wires, not any hoses, honestly. Not a single hose showing visibly right here. And I've got these bad boys, which are my O2 sensors. If I really wanted to, and I might explore this, I could actually put them on the underside and flip these around, I have plenty of space that I could actually run those things the other way. But that is the front of the engine. And then here is the back of the engine in all of its organized glory. It's still a little bit all over the place. I've got to run this to the return line, the hard line. This is connected right to the radiator cap. The one thing I need to run is from here to here, no big. And like I said, if I wanted to, I have tons of extra wideband controller, so I could actually run these things underneath and keep it all completely out of the way. But I'm totally stoked. Here's your overflow tank. There's your wideband controller. There's your fuses for your fans. There's your Haltech Flex fuel sensor. There is your fuel regulator. There's your fuel distribution block. And Bob is your uncle. I'm gonna leave this here tonight. What do you think, Ben? You think it looks pretty good? So, like, what do you want? It's so good, you guys. This thing closes just lovely, and it's right there. The vents are sucking down. Then you got to install your ECU. You should have done that already. And your drive-by-wire, and you start the car and go vroom vroom once you put a little oil and a little coolant in it. Pretty rad. All right, guys, so it's day 3-ish, I think, in the garage for this. And of course, I couldn't resist seeing what it looked like inside the engine compartment. I just wanted to see how all of this work and engineering and prototyping actually laid out in real life. Pretty thrilled with the result. I think it looks amazing. And one note about it. When I decided I'm gonna throw this in the car, from being over there on the cart to being installed took 7 minutes for me to wiggle it underneath, jack it up, sync it up with the transmission. It's not bolted in yet, but 7 minutes, which is the whole concept of this. Can we make this thing really mechanically serviceable? And that reminds me of a question that you guys have had. You've asked, can we service these bits that are behind this shield? Not really, but also yes. What you have to do is a half engine drop or a partial engine drop, we call it. You just gotta disconnect the two 19mm bolts here, and then throw a jack under the engine, lower the engine down, and then you have some access there to the back. Not worried about it at all. That process takes about 60 seconds. So I'm not super concerned. If you need to get in there and tweak something, not that hard to do on occasion. My goal is that you don't have to get in there and tweak a whole lot of stuff. I'm gonna pull this thing out. My next couple of agendas are I wanna weld up the side supports for the cradle. So I've got to weld all those pieces together that you guys saw me laser cut and assemble. So I'm gonna weld those together, and then I have at least the individual components I need to create the coolant crossover pipe that needs to go from 2 into 1 and then into this spot on the engine. So let's get into it. Look at this. I'm sweating, baby. It's hot, but also being under a hood while you're TIG welding. So those things came out really well. I'm pretty happy with how both those brackets are. And I think I'm gonna try to do maybe like a little test fit of the cradle before I kind of try to reassemble everything and get it in permanently. All right, guys, so we are officially, I don't know, dry fit is maybe the best way to put it. I've got each of the brackets and the engine is in. If I lower this thing down, it should drop a little bit. Okay, now it's out. And Take this thing away. I got two more pieces I have to make. One is going to be something that goes into these holes that are on the underside of this and mounts this exhaust. Basically, I've got to hold the exhaust up, kind of a la Porsche. And the second thing I have to do here is I've got the radiator outlets, and I've got to make a 2-into-1 that eventually goes into this bad boy. And for that, I will show you the ingredients. All right, so my plan is to use all of these ingredients. I've got a bunch of stuff. This is a whole bunch of 1.25" stainless tubing. I've got some nice clamps. I've got some silicone, and I've gotten these bad boys that when it's all said and done will be welded onto it, so it'll look great. I'm just going to kind of fabricate and tape it together, and then I'm going to send it to somebody that actually knows how to weld stainless steel and can make something look very pretty. That is not me. I'm not very good at stainless yet. This is the ingredients, and we're going to have to figure out a way to get from those two things up to that dude. All right, dudes, so here's the vision. I still need to make one more piece that will go here and connect, but this is kind of the swoop. Still can access the oil. I could actually do this out of steel if I wanted to. I do have a 90 here, but I kind of don't need to. This is pretty easy. So I'll do another straight piece that will then be obviously fit to the pipe, and then the creme de la creme will be this guy will be bent and welded in the center, which will be super cool. And I'll probably end up doing some kind of clamps that will affix this pipe to the cradle itself, and it's just going to be gorge. Now I'm looking at it now and thinking I may have to disconnect it for the engine install, which is not the biggest deal. I'm just looking at kind of the clearance here and how it might hang over, but I really like the routing. I think it's super clean, and I think it's going to be great. All right, just to put a bow on that last part before we kick this video away, I just basically bought a bunch of 90s and a couple of 45s from Amazon, as well as obviously some straight tubing, and just cut it and taped it together. It wasn't anything too crazy. Now, there is a company called Xometry, and I don't know how they're spelled. It's like Xometry or something like that. But they kind of do what Send Cut Send does for tubing, where you can give them a 3D model of the tubing you want bent, and they will make the custom bends for you. So as I go through this process and I think about how do I manufacture these things so that I don't have to worry about, like, do I need to weld up 10 of these or 20 of these or whatever, my goal is to make this as manufacturable and as quickly assembled as, of course, humanly possible. So I'm probably going to try my hand at trying to make a 3D model of that tube that I just built with tape and tubing. So it shouldn't be all that challenging. It's like 190 and then two 45s at a certain angle. So the challenge will be, if the 90 is sort of coming at me, what's the angle of the 45s to get it to where I want it? So I'll figure all that stuff out, but hopefully by the time we do another video, I will have modeled it and maybe sent it off to Xometry to custom bend for me. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, having a ton of fun with this, and you guys, we'll see you next time.